Adam Collins, Bharat Sundaresan. It's the final word daily. Well, the daily that isn't. Day 4, what would have been here at Indore. Instead, Australia won the test match yesterday. We're still here at the team hotel where Andrew McDonald's been speaking. We're going to do a bit of a wash-up of what's happened in the 24 hours or so since the test match finished. Baz, first and foremost, the pitch had its rating last night by the match referee, who declared it poor. There'll be, 3 demerit points from the ICC as a consequence. Was that in line with your expectations?
Very much so, and it's rarely that you get a pitch report so quickly after a test match finishes, but it tells you a lot about the pitch itself.
We may as well say it. We've got the match referees in our vicinity as we record. But,
exactly. So the man responsible for the pitch
So we'll
report.
say it was perfectly in line with our expectations.
It totally
after
was.
The fact.
Look, I mean, if like the report said as well, I mean, if within the first 15 minutes or so, the keeper is being knocked on the helmet with a turning ball, like we saw last year in Gaul in that first test match. It tells you a lot about this pitch. I mean, there are some wickets which you can refer to as a lottery wicket. This was even worse than that.
So we've heard from the Australian coach. Obviously, there's this palpable sense of pride around the group at the moment. You stayed at the ground while they were there, having a couple of beers. Yesterday, they stayed for a long time there. They were savouring the moment.
Oh, very much so. In fact, I was waiting for them to leave because I was taught very early on in my career, Adam Collins, do not leave till the team has left. After a point, I did want to leave. My laptop had run out of juice. My phone had no battery. So I wanted to leave, but I did not. And the match finished just before 11 a.m. It wasn't before 4 p.m. that the Australian team started leaving. Frankie, their wonderful head of security, he kept walking laps around the ground. Pretty late, around, I want to say 3:45, Usman Khawaja walked out of the dressing room, followed soon after by Cam Green and Lance Morris and Matt Renshaw. They played a game of keepy uppy for a while, but you could see, I mean, the spirits were high. Because let's face it, India do not lose in India very often. It is a very significant moment. We spoke about this on commentary as well. As Australia were nearing that target, that something very special is playing out in front of us. And no surprises that Australia wanted to savor every bit of it.
Let's just zoom out a bit here and talk about the Indian side first, I think. So we heard from Rohit Sharma after the first test at Nagpur, reflecting on the surface, saying we don't need to prepare big turning wickets or extravagant turning wickets because we have the weapons in Ashwin and Jadeja who can win it anyway, can win it on a flatty, maybe not a flatty, but a pitch that is challenging without being excessive. Interesting then that what we had at the Indore was excessive and how that might inform the decision making ahead of Ahmedabad, where they need to potentially win to make the World Test Championship final. Might it be that we see a flat wicket? It certainly won't be the green seamer that Rohit Sharma was throwing forward to before this test in the event that they won here, and they might use a green pitch at Ahmedabad to prepare for the World Test Championship final. The framework changes now. Surely it'll be a flat one next up.
Well, I'm not so sure, Adam. I mean, that seems to be the consensus that everybody anticipates that the next pitch will be a flat one. But Rohit Sharma has said throughout the series that India has played Test cricket on challenging pitches from 2019. He used the word challenging.
Yes.
This was more than challenging.
No,
This was unplayable at some level. So I don't expect another pitch like Indore for sure. But I will not be surprised if it's a pitch which is slightly closer to Nagpur in terms of there will be turn from pretty early on. Not raging turn. Wicket keepers won't be getting knocked on the head, hopefully not. But I still don't expect a really flat pitch because a lot of these Indian batters have not batted on a flat pitch for a long time. And because a lot of guys, the key guys, don't play a lot of first-class cricket except Cheteshwar Pujara, not domestic cricket anyway, I think that's an adjustment which will be a challenge to make for them as well. So I still think it'll be a pitch where the spinners will come into play early, but hopefully not as early as we saw here in Indore.
It must frustrate players like Virat Kohli and other senior members of the Indian side that in the last few years it's become so much more difficult for them to bat at home. I know there'll be a certain amount of trade-off there. Kohli's spoken before about happily sacrificing his own run gathering if it means the side wins. But there is a tipping point, isn't there, where these guys who are paid to make bulk runs are walking out in conditions where it does, we're using the word lottery, where it does become hit and miss whether they're able to sort of execute their skills, excuse the cliche.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes almost beyond survival. It's about luck, really. You go out there and you just hope that you don't get that ball that rolls through the surface or jumps at your head. I mean, there was that pull shot that Virat Kohli attempted very early on in his innings, which the ball slid under his bat, and you could see smiles all around. Or even before that, we spoke about this. We have spoken about this quite a bit on the morning of on the first morning. Mitchell Starc bowls that ball, full ball, big puff of dust. Ball gets to Alex Carey on the bound.
They're all laughing.
They were all laughing. They realized that, well, this pitch is not a test wicket.
Sure.
And I think you're right. I mean, that balance has been tipped way too much in favor of like assisting spinners, but it also undermines how great Ashwin and Jadeja are as bowlers, and Akshar Patel. I mean, they will be the first ones to say we don't need pitches like this to beat opposition teams. Ashwin in particular and Jadeja as well. So, and they have done it. The 2016-17 season is the one that everybody talks about in India, where England made a lot of runs and India just made more runs. And then in the second innings, Ashwin and Jadeja were just too good for England to survive a second time. Those are the kind of pitches we were used to seeing Test cricket played on in India. But in the last few years, and especially this series, it's skewed way too much in favor of bowlers, but also I think in terms of Test cricket where there is no balance between bat and ball.
From Australia's perspective, they're just chuffed that they're able to ride the bumps through the Test. Andrew McDonald explaining that there were moments there where they could have dropped their bundle. I'm thinking when they went out to field the second time, they've lost 6 for 11. India were all over them in the second hour of the second morning. But yet they come out after lunch and Nathan Lyon's able to go to work. Supported so well in the field, those two magnificent catches by Khawaja initially to get rid of Shreyas Iyer at what felt like a really important time in the Test match when Shreyas Iyer was applying some serious scoreboard pressure, and then Cheteshwar Pujara around the corner on 59 when it looked like he was going to bat through the day. So they were able to, when it mattered most, play their best cricket, which wasn't the case in Delhi when they got the risk-reward calculation out of kilter on that third morning and were bowled out in the space of 90 minutes. So that's where the Australians are proud that they had a plan, that they stuck to it, and it paid off, and especially that they didn't lose their nerve, I suppose.
Yeah, Test cricket in life, and you've heard me talk about this all the time. Test cricket in India is a lot like life in India. You can have all the plans in the world, but India will force you to change them. Not just the Indian team, but India as a country, and just how life functions here. And the tempo of it as well. That's where you need to soak in as much of the pressure, hold your nerve, and at some level embrace the chaos and still try to do whatever you're doing at your own pace. And that's what Australia did really, really well. I mean, Manas took it to the next level with R. Ashwin and frustrated him yesterday morning or on the third morning, where he slowed him down so much that after point Ashwin was slowing things down. And Andrew McDonald spoke about that as well. He was surprised that the Indians started slowing things down on the third morning. That allowed Australia to play at the tempo that they wanted to play. And there were some key moments. You know, even walking out to bat in that first innings after India had been blown away for 106, 109, where batting looked impossible. Usman Khawaja plays that extraordinary innings. It wasn't just a good innings, it was really an extraordinary innings.
It was serene, wasn't it, in the circumstances?
Absolutely, yeah. He's the only one who looked at ease on that pitch.
Well, it's another one of those moments I referred to before where, you know, they lose the early wicket. Then Travis heads out to a ball that's retrospectively chalked off as a no ball. I mean, it feels like it's going to be a 20-plus wicket day. That's when Khawaja just calms things down. It kind of bolstering that point about the tempo that Australia were able to, for the most part, play the Test match on their terms. They never really were able to do that in Nagpur and Delhi when it mattered most.
And also what happened was when the pace hastened, as it does with Test cricket in India, Australia panicked. They panicked in Nagpur, where they got stuck in the crease. They panicked in Delhi, where they felt like we need to throw our bats at everything. But here, they go back after having suffered another collapse, 6 for 11. Umesh Yadav comes and turns the game in the space of 39 balls. But at that point, they put their hand up and say, you know what, we can stay in this game if we put on a strong bowling performance, but also stick to our plans. And the run rate, India's run rate in the second innings was telling, because Australia did not let them get away at all. So even though Pujara batted beautifully, and as well as Khawaja did in the first innings for India, the game never moved away from Australia, and that's why they were able to keep that target down to 76. And the moment that really for me counted was Shreyas Iyer going after India. Rohit Sharma spoke about it after the Australian spinners. He said that is the kind of innings which kind of breaks games of Test cricket here. but that's where Steve Smith, what he does is brings Mitchell Starc back on. It wasn't a wicket-taking delivery, but what it also does is slows the pace down. You suddenly have a fast bowler. It's not a spinner coming at Shreyas Iyer and Shreyas Iyer taking him on. We've seen it happen whenever Rishabh Pant would go after the opposition spinners and opposition teams would let him do that. Here they did not do that, and that's where the game turned.
Yeah, it's for the same reason that Peter Hanscom and Cameron Green have earned praise from their coach. Alex Carey as well, like big moment early on with Rohit Sharma. Before we talk about Travis Head, a reminder that all of our programs here in India are brought to you by Visit Melbourne and the Visit Victoria campaign. VisitMelbourne.com, always routinely voted the most livable city in the world. But forget about that. I'm from there, Jeff's from there. You're from down the road in Adelaide, but you appreciate our charms as well. What we do get in Melbourne are test matches that go more than 2.5 days. So get down to the Melbourne Cricket Ground where Ed Sheeran had 106,000 two nights ago, 110,000 last night. So get to the Coliseum that is the great MCG, the hometown of the final word. Travis Head, your hometown, South Australia. Last thing we should talk about today is the national debate that's emerging about whether he should open the batting in perpetuity, whether he's shown enough here and in Delhi for that matter in the second innings where he got off to a good start to remain the permanent opener. But it feels to me, and Andrew McDonald said this when asked this morning, that ultimately they'd rather he bat 5 and stay 5 and transfer pressure back onto tired attacks than to potentially offset that by having him opening the batting as successful as he was yesterday.
And more importantly, when I asked Travis Head himself yesterday when I was interviewing him for SEN, he said he still thinks of himself as being a number 5 batter. I don't think he's obviously keen to bat wherever Australia want him to bat, but he just one innings or scoring the runs that he did under pressure, we called it one of the most important moments in his test career. I don't think that's changed his opinion as to how he sees himself going forward as a test cricketer. Number 5 is his. He's earned that position in Australia, and I think he will stick to it. But it gives Australia these amazing options, though, if they can have these very literal horses for courses selection and options in bringing Travis Head up the order in the subcontinent and pushing him back to number 5 in England or in Australia. That just makes them such a flexible side. Yeah,
that's right. I mean, they've also spoken of the fact that a number of these younger players will come to India sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 times in their career in other parts of Asia, and Head will fall into that category, not being an older member of the side, still in his 20s. So one to watch this space on there. Bharat, time for us, I think, to go to lunch, as is our prerogative on a day where they're not playing. This has been The Final Word Daily. Thanks to Visit Victoria for their support. If you like what we do, patreon.com/The Final Word. Our weekend show, Storytime, will be out in the feed tomorrow. A weekly show with Jeff and me after that. And then we're off to Ahmedabad for the 4th test of this Border-Gavaskar series. Thanks for watching. Adam Collins, Bharat Sundaresan. Catch you later.